So about a week ago at this point, I beat Donkey Kong Country 3, and Donkey Kong Country 3 is said to be the black sheep of the Donkey Kong Country franchise, right? Everybody loves 1, everybody loves 2, but 3 people often overlook, and I think that's for a couple reasons I will get into later in this video. But right off the rip, I just want to let you guys know that I did really enjoy the game and I had a great time, so let's get into my retro review of Donkey Kong Country 3 that I played on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System Nintendo Switch Online service. Let's do it. So the first thing to touch on here would be the comparison of Donkey Kong Country 3 to 1 and 2. And now to 1 specifically, I feel like they could be fairly similar. Obviously 3 has a bit better graphics because at this point, like the N64 was already out, so they knew how to use this system pretty well. But the difficulty and the time it takes and all that kind of stuff is very similar. They're both about 8 to 10 hour games. They both have some hard areas, but overall you can get through them fairly efficiently, right? Now, if we flip that on its head a little bit, we go over to comparing it to Donkey Kong Country 2, and Donkey Kong Country 2 is one of the hardest games I have ever played and I have ever beaten. And so, when I compare the 20 hours it took me to beat that game, and the difficulty it takes in that game, like every level you're playing it 40 times to try and finally just beat it one effing time, and then I post a video about it, and everybody's like, well, you didn't actually beat the game, you didn't get the secret world. Fuck the secret world, chat. I will never get there, I promise you. However, we go from that to this game. And this game was a breath of fresh air because it did just go back to not being a tough as nails platformer. It's hard at times, yes, but overall it is not this painstaking experience at times that was Donkey Kong Country 2. I mean, there were times that I was able to get through things fairly efficiently, and I felt like, especially in the last couple worlds of Donkey Kong Country 2, I was not able to do that. I mean, I was on every level for a very long time, probably at least an hour to 2 hours per level at the end there, and so that doesn't happen here. The difficulty is very similar to Donkey Kong Country 1, but the boss battles and things like that and the buddies are very similar to Donkey Kong Country 2. So I feel that it pretty much grabs the best of both worlds here, while yes, not being as rewarding when you finish the game, okay? And we'll get into that in a little bit. But now jumping out of that comparison, let's talk about this game itself, and let's talk about the gameplay. Now the gameplay is pretty straightforward. It is very similar to both of the other platformers. It's a platformer tried and true, right? This time you're playing as Dixie Kong and Kiddy Kong. Kiddy Kong is the worst character they have ever made, ever. He sucks so much, but what Kiddy Kong lacks, Dixie more than makes up for. And in Donkey Kong Country 2, I didn't really like the way Dixie played. I don't know, I couldn't get a hang of how to control her hair and all that kind of stuff, but I pretty much mastered it in this game because of how much I hated how Kiddy Kong played. Now, when you're running around and stuff with Dixie, you can obviously use her hair helicopter thingy to save yourself on a bigger jump or whatever. And with Kiddy Kong, the only thing he has going is he throws barrels from an underhand placement instead of straight down and overhead, so sometimes he is useful for, like, hitting a specific enemy with a barrel, and I really only ever use that during the boss fight, to be honest. But when you're not actively moving with Kiddy Kong, he just, like, sits down. Which, why? I mean, that sucks. Like, it really, really sucks. And it, like, I don't know, I just feel like I never have any momentum with him, plus he's a baby and a loser, chat. I mean, this is a bad character, straight up. But for the two of them, they play about how you expect. Dixie Kong is pretty much the same as she was from Donkey Kong Country 2, and Kiddy Kong just plays as a worse Donkey Kong, I would say, Now, another thing that they do in this game, that all of the games do, is they mix up the gameplay mechanics. Sometimes you're thrown into an underwater level, sometimes you're thrown into, like, an on-rails minecart level, or in this case, they were, like, sled levels, and then, like, I don't even know what you would call that, but I'll show some gameplay. They look like this, right? And those would just serve to mix up the gameplay a bit, and they were really fun. I really enjoyed all of those levels, except for, of course, the water ones. However, they did make the water levels bearable by giving us the swordfish guy, and he's a chiller, so I do appreciate that they've done that. On top of all those normal ones, they also have levels like how they did in Donkey Kong Country 2, where you just play as the buddy thing, and you're, like, going throughout the whole thing. But except for in this one, they introduce a new type of parrot, where instead of spitting a little, I don't know, like a rock at the thing and flying past them, you, like, grab these barrels, and you can hit enemies with a barrel. It's kind of clunky. I really didn't like how it played, honestly. I prefer the other one. I think his name is Squawk. I prefer Squawk every time. but if I have to deal with this guy, it's whatever. It worked out. It's not a big deal. And there were really only a couple levels that were like that. Also, the spider makes his grand return, and as I'm a pro at the spider now, it was not nearly as difficult. Also, the levels themselves really aren't as difficult, and what I do appreciate about this game that I thought was a little cheap is that sometimes in Donkey Kong Country 2, you would go through this whole thing that is really hard, and you get to the end, and a cannonball comes after you as fast as it can possibly go, and then you're just dead, right? Because you don't expect it because you haven't played that far in the level yet. That's when it comes back to this fact that you do kind of have to memorize these levels in order to get through them. However, with Donkey Kong Country 3, I feel like it gives you a little bit more time to breathe, which I really love because it led to me feeling less cheapened by all these deaths that I was getting, right? So the gameplay was good. It was a huge variety of a bunch of different things, but the main difference in this game, I would say, is that there is a hub world. So in the other one, you're pretty much on a linear path to the hub world, right? You can go up, you can go whatever, but on this one, you get these different boat upgrades each time you beat a boss, and then you can upgrade your boat to get to a new level or get to a new area of the overworld map. And I think that's such a cool way to do it. It basically had a gimmick within itself, and it was just kind of a fun way to get across everything. It was basically very similar, right? I mean, it's nothing super duper new because also, like, once you park your boat and you get into the actual levels, it's just like they were before. But that going in between part is a fun little attempt at a new gimmick. Plus, this one you could save after every single level. Thank the maker that you could do that, chat, because there were some still very hard levels here, but I think the fact that you could save after every single one allowed it to not feel like such a chore to get through everything and then have to go all the way back and redo every level like I often did in Donkey Kong Country 2. In the second one, if you wanted to save, you had to save up a bunch of coins in order to go back to a different world, save, and then fly out of it, essentially, right? And so in this one, you could literally save after every single level because they were free. There was no need to get a bunch of coins, but it still had that sort of difficulty where, like, if you just got to a new world or a new level, you would hypothetically have to, like, beat 2 or 3 levels in a row and then unlock it. But you know what you could do is you can just jump right back in the boat, go all the way back to sort of the beginning area, and there's a save cave right there. And I did that a couple times because a bitch does not like to go back and repeat what she just did. Like, I just don't want to. It pisses me off, you know what I'm saying? And so I really love that they started to do this, and it shows that, like, obviously going to the next few Donkey Kong games, Donkey Kong Country Returns and Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, both of those games are extremely difficult, but you can save after every single level. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what a bitch wants. Obviously, you could do it sort of in the first and the second, especially with Nintendo Switch Online, because you could just load up a little save state right there and do all that kind of stuff, but I did want to make it as close to the original as possible so I get the least amount of angry comments below, to be real with you guys, and so because of that, this is what we have, and I appreciate that it is different. Graphically, it looks phenomenal. I think this is the best looking Donkey Kong game of the 3. Now, yes, the other 2 do look amazing as well, but I think it's just like this game came out at the end of the SNES's life cycle, so they knew how to exploit this console for everything and get every ounce of graphics out of it, right? And so it ended up looking phenomenal. The colors were vibrant, the backgrounds were great, the character designs were really well done, all of it was awesome, and to go alongside of that, the boss battles. Now, the boss battle in this game were really interesting, and I felt like they were really where this game shines. Where the other 2 shine, DKC the original and its sort of originality and its newness, DKC the second one and its difficulty and introduction of new mechanics and things like that. Well, this one pretty much just builds off of both of those without doing too much original things. What it did do was make really, really fun boss battles, and most of these boss battles you're playing as one of these animal buddies, and one that I specifically really like and remember is this waterfall one, and there's this thing going, like, waterfall going down, and then it spits water at you, and you have to basically jump over it at the right time or avoid it by platforming across the thing, and then getting over to one area and using your little elephant trunk to, like, beat the fuck out of this guy's eye. And then once you get it out of his eye, then you go to the other one and transfer over, and so it's pretty cool in that way. There was also a pretty cool spider boss battle, and there are just overall, I think the boss battles of this game were the strongest part of it, because each new, boss had some sort of gimmick, some sort of thing that you had to play into, and yeah, I mean, they were cool. They were very well designed. The soundtracks throughout all of these were amazing, and I really feel that Donkey Kong Country 3 gets a bad rep, right? Most people you talk to, especially most people I was talking to in the, in the other YouTuber gaming space, they don't give a shit about Donkey Kong Country 3. They like 1 and they like 2, and 3 just came out too late for a lot of them to play it within their childhood, I think, because they were already on to like the N64 or something like that. And so with the bad rap that this game had pretty much gotten, I went in expecting to not really like it that much because I just didn't think it was going to live up to the other two, but I really do think it's a great supplemental piece. I don't think that this is a game that you play without playing the other two, right? You play the other two first and foremost, but if you want more Donkey Kong, this is just a great game to play and to check out because it is more of what you love from the previous games, and it just adds more and more to it, and you can see like where maybe Donkey Kong Returns draws a little inspiration, and Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze draw a little inspiration, because there's small quality of life things that this one really helps to, keep up to date in a way that the other two didn't. Obviously, not to dog on the other two, because I did really like those, and I do think that overall they are better games. Like, if I were to put this in a ranking, it'd probably be 1, 2, and then 3 for me personally. But it's not because 3 is a bad game, because honestly, I probably would end up giving them all a very similar score of an 8 or 9. But it's just because of the fact that I don't think you can directly go into playing this game. And for a lot of people, Kiddy Kong just ruins the game, which is fair because he sucks. And I don't know why they went with Kiddy Kong. I mean, that was a weird thing that they did there. But the story of, oh, now it's Dixie's turn to save both of these people. And hey, a female protagonist in the 90s, chat, the wokies or not the wokies, the anti-woke fucking whatever mob it is, the incel mob, I don't know what they're called. Don't tell them about that. They're gonna get real mad. Yeah, but as a whole, it's really a decent game. It's very fun. It's a great additive experience to what we had from the first two. And I think if you enjoyed the other two and you want more DK, check this one out for sure. It was very refreshing for me to go into playing this game and for it to not take years. Obviously, the second one didn't take years, but it just took so much longer. And so by the time I beat this game, I was so shocked that I was already done with it because of how long 2 took me. And I don't even remember, like, feeling the time that 1 took me, but I do I just can't imagine going through another 20-hour frustrating experience like that, because it's good one time, and what that does do is give you you take a lot of pride in beating that game, right? Because it's hard. And you also, like, there's a lot of satisfaction after you beat every level because you're just so relieved that you finally beaten it. But in 3, that's not really a thing because you can sort of breeze through it. However, at this point, after playing them in a row, I would rather have a game where I can feel a bit relieved than a game where I'm constantly stressed out and spending hours and hours and hours on a level. Not to dog on Donkey Kong Country 2, because obviously it is a better game, but as an experience of playing all of them straight through, like I just said, I'm very, very happy with what Donkey Kong Country 3 is. It's beautiful to look at. I'm going to give it a solid 8 out of 10. Yes, it's derivative of the other two. It's not super original, super new, but what I want you to do is let me know down in the comments below if I should be playing Donkey Kong Country 64 to catch up to this, and is that on Nintendo Switch Online? Because if it is, I will think about it for sure, but if it's not, we're not going to do it, because how the fuck am I supposed to stream that? And I'm not playing that baddie in my free time, chat. No, thank you. But if you like this video, drop it a like, subscribe to the channel, check out this video. It's a bangers vibe. It's a good time. I will see you over there. Also going to make a sort of like edited playthrough of every single one of the Donkey Kong games with commentary over the top of it, of me talking about my experience when I'm playing it, as well as small little interview segments, so it sort of feels like sitcom-y. It's just an idea I might try out. Let me know what you think about that down below as well, and check out this video.